Joining me now from Mar-a-Lago, the Trump holiday retreat in Palm Beach, is Mr. Trump's incoming White House Chief of Staff, Reince Priebus. Mr. Priebus, during the campaign, Mr. Trump took a hard line about Barack Obama's efforts to restore relations with Cuba. Here he is in the campaign.
All of the concessions that Barack Obama has granted the Castro regime were done through executive order, which means the next president can reverse them. And that I will do unless the Castro regime meets our demands.
But Mr. Trump, in a statement that he issued yesterday about Castro's death, did not repeat that pledge. So the question, Mr. Priebus, is does Mr. Trump intend to follow through on his pledge to roll back Mr. Obama's opening of relations with Cuba?
Yes, he does, Chris, and good morning, and thanks for having me. I think President-elect Trump's been pretty clear that, you know, there's nothing wrong with talking to people. He's been willing to talk to anybody, but we've got to have a better deal. We're not going to have a unilateral deal coming from Cuba back to the United States without some changes in their government. Repression, open markets, freedom of religion, political prisoners. These things need to change in order to have open and free relationships, and that's what President-elect Trump believes, and that's where he's going to head. Talking is fine, but action is something that will be required under President Trump.
So let me make sure I have this clear, because he's calling basically for a revolution in Cuba, full political freedom, full religious freedom, releasing all the political prisoners. If he doesn't get that, he is going to reverse President Obama's executive orders?
No, I didn't say that, Chris. I said that those were that's the suffering that's happening now in Cuba. But I do believe that in order for any sort of deal to take place, President-elect Trump is going to be looking for some movement in the right direction in order to have any sort of deal with Cuba. I mean, it can't just be nothing, and then you get total and complete cooperation from the United States. There has to be something, and what that something is, Chris, is yet to be determined, but I can assure you that he's going to require some movement or some schedule of movement in order to then schedule some kind of relationship with Cuba. But without knowing what those things are, there's nothing really more to talk about other than there isn't going to be a one-way relationship from the United States to Cuba without some action from the Castro administration.
But just to pin this down, if he doesn't get whatever it is that he wants, would he reverse President Obama's opening to Cuba?
Well, absolutely. I mean, he's already said that that would be the case. I mean, and what that deal is yet to be determined, but there is going to have to be some movement from Cuba in order to have a relationship with the United States. And I think the President-elect has been very clear about that, and I'm just restating that position.
While the President-elect is making progress on naming his team, it seems that something close to open warfare has broken out over his deliberations about choosing a Secretary of State, especially when it comes down to consideration of Mitt Romney. Well, before you laugh, let me make
about open warfare.
Well, let me make my case.
Okay, go ahead, Chris.
If I will. Okay.
All right, make your case.
Then you can make fun of me, particularly in the consideration of Mitt Romney and Rudy Giuliani. Let me put this on the screen. Transition official Kellyanne Conway tweeted this on Thanksgiving: receiving deluge of social media and private communications about Romney, some Trump loyalists warn against Romney as Secretary of State. And key supporter Mike Huckabee said this:
there's only one way that I think Mitt Romney could even be considered for a post like that, and that is that he goes to a microphone in a very public place and repudiates everything he said in that famous Salt Lake City speech.
Mr. Priebus, does Mr. Trump consider that appropriate for top advisors to lobby him in public about people he's choosing? Is that the kind of White House as Chief of Staff that you're going to run? And must Romney apologize to get the job?
Okay, so let me kind of package this up for you. There are a lot of opinions as far as this topic and many other cabinet positions. But I think what President-elect Trump has said is that, as he said the entire campaign, he's going to hire the best people possible. So he's going through this process. He's interviewed and talked to Governor Romney. He's talked to the mayor. He's talked to others like General Kelly. He's going to be talking to more people next week. He's going to be making the best decision for the American people. It isn't a matter of warfare. I mean, there's a lot of opinions about this, and yes, it is a sort of a team game of rivals concept if he were to go toward the Governor Romney concept. But I think that should tell all Americans about where President-elect's head's at, which is a place that will put the best possible people together for all Americans, no matter who you are, what religion, whatever your opinion is. He wants to move forward looking through the windshield and not the rearview mirror, and that's where President-elect's head is at, and I think it's a great place for Americans.
Is Romney going to have to apologize for the very harsh things he said during the campaign in order to get the job?
Well, I'm not going to do the play-by-play, Chris, on what's going to be required or where things are at. I think things are moving forward. I think President-elect Trump's going to keep talking to the right people and get opinions on what the right decision would be, but ultimately it'll be his decision. And I can just assure the American people the fact that he's actually even flirting with the idea of choosing a rival should tell the American people where he's at, which is the best place for everyone in this country.
Let me ask you quickly about another name that's being mentioned for Secretary of State, and that's General David Petraeus. Now, during the campaign, and you and I well remember this, Trump hammered Hillary Clinton for mishandling classified information. Petraeus was convicted for that same offense.
Well, listen, talking to people and choosing people and getting opinions and learning from really smart people as far as what the right decision-making process may be in choosing a Secretary of State or any other position is something that smart people do. I don't think anyone could say that David Petraeus isn't a very bright, calculated, smart person. And these are the types of conversations that I think the American people would expect of an incoming president that's trying to make the best decisions possible for everyone out there across the country.
Let me turn to another subject. Green Party presidential candidate Jill Stein has initiated a vote recount in Wisconsin. And she's talking about doing the same in Pennsylvania and Michigan. And now we hear from the Clinton campaign's top lawyer that they are also going to participate in this recount. What is Mr. Trump's reaction to all of that, especially the Clinton campaign's participation in this recount?
Well, first of all, President-elect Trump won in a historic electoral landslide. This is an electoral process. It's not a popular vote process. He had the best performance since Ronald Reagan in 1984, winning over 2,600 counties, 9 of 13 battleground states, a historic margin that we haven't seen in our party in a long, long time. That's number one. Number two, if it was a popular vote, he'd have won the popular vote as well.
I know, but I'm talking about the recount.
The question is, I got it, and it's ridiculous. This is a fundraising, notoriety-driven fraud by a person who won 33,000 votes in Wisconsin to President-elect Trump, who won 1.4 million. So here we have a person perpetrating a fundraising scheme that has lost by over 1.35 million votes in Wisconsin, attempting to undo a 28,000 vote lead. It's never going to happen. It's a total waste of everybody's time.
But let me ask you, what do you think?
And in fact,
let me just ask, what do you think of the Hillary Clinton campaign now joining in on the effort?
Well, what I think is, let's just assume that that's true. I wonder whether Nate Elias and others are going to back off, since on election night, Hillary Clinton was the one to say it's time to accept the results of the election and look to the future. And it was their team that cut a deal with our team that said when the AP called the race, they would call within 15 minutes and concede, which they did. It is a total and complete hypocritical joke that the group of people that thought that they were nervous about President-elect Trump not conceding are the people that are conducting recounts in states where we've won by over 68,000 votes. I think the American people know this is a waste of everyone's time and money, and is only to divide this country when we need to come together, no matter who you are, Republican, Democrat, race, gender, whatever it is, and look forward to the future of rebuilding this country and getting us back on track. That's what President Trump is going to do. That's what we want to do. And this is a total and complete distraction and a fraud and something that they should drop. But look, they will waste our time, and we will staff up with thousands of people. We will sit there and look through Scantron ballots. We will win again for the second time, and they will lose again for the second time. But our country doesn't need it.
Okay, let me, I want to get into two more quick issues with you. President Obama seemed to open the door to major flips on policy this week in an interview with the New York Times, and I want to put up several of the things he said. He backed off his pledge to appoint a special prosecutor to investigate Hillary Clinton, says he now has a, quote, open mind about pulling out of the Paris Climate Agreement, and he said that General Mattis, who he's considering for Secretary of Defense, may have changed his mind on torture. Here we go.
I said, what do you think of waterboarding? He said, I was surprised. He said, I've never found it to be useful.
How flexible is Mr. Trump about the promises he made to the American people in the campaign?
Well, look, it's not a matter of flexibility. I think it's a matter of listening and declaring to the American people that, look, he's not, and let me, if I can hit each one of them very quickly, I won't take up a lot of time, but on the issue in regard to Hillary Clinton, his point there is he's not seeking methods and ways to persecute and prosecute Hillary Clinton. But I would also tell you that if the Attorney General and the Congress find evidence that would indicate that something needs to happen, and our Attorney General Jeff Sessions at the DOJ says something needs to happen, I would suspect that President-elect Trump is going to be open to listening to what that is, but ultimately it's going to be the DOJ's call. Number two, as far as this issue on climate change, the only thing he was saying is, after being asked a few questions about, is, look, I'll have an open mind about it, but he has his default position, which is that most of it is a bunch of bunk, but he'll have an open mind and listen to people. I think that's what he's saying. And then the third thing, as far as General Mattis, a person that he totally respects, one of the most decorated Marines of our generation, and said, look, you'd be better off with a pack of cigarettes and a cup of coffee than waterboarding. That was a very impactful statement from a guy that people ought to listen to. And I think that's what President Trump is saying. All in all, this package of statements is something that should give Americans just a total peace and hope that we've got a person in the White House that is listening to people, that is listening to the smartest people in America, and wants to lead our country for all Americans. In the meantime, we've got Hillary Clinton want to do a recount over 68,000 votes. This is the contrast. A person who wants to look forward, not backwards. That's what you have in President-elect Trump.
Mr. Priebus, thank you. Thanks for your time. It's always good to talk with you, sir.
Thank you.